Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to Tool Show with me, Master Dan, the Journeyman shooter. And today we're just doing a lovely walk here for our coffee time segment. And I've got a delicious, I don't know what this is, just some kind of regular roast or whatever. And oh, it still tastes like this other coffee that I had in there the other day. That was, it was pretty gross, but oh well, it's a lovely morning, and I figured I'd just have one of our coffee time segments, and this is just our practice segment where you basically just kind of talk over a coffee break with a master level electrician, and you kind of learn a little bit of stuff about the world. So today's lesson is, I was thinking what's kind of perfect for this time of year, and it's spring cleaning right now, and when you're cleaning in the spring, you tend to kick up a lot of dust, and part of that dust is you have allergies. People just can't deal with it, and I know I'm the same. Like when I kick it up, it just gets there and you get stuffed up and you feel like you have a sore throat or you get a cough or all the other mess that kind of goes along with it, and that's not good. You don't want that. So what can you do to get rid of those allergies besides trying to get a dust mask or pulling your shirt up over your face just to cover yourself up? But what else can you do? Is there any other ways? And I know as a tradesman, one of our secret weapons over the year has been, or over the last, well, I think it's probably since it came out or whatever, but the secret weapon for most tradespeople is the allergy medications. Like I can't say any of the names because I'm not affiliated with anybody right now, but I know I personally take a couple of those allergy medications twice a year, usually when I get like the inside stuff. Especially in construction, you're going to be dealing with a lot of dust. If you're not doing new renovations or you're not doing new jobs or whatever, you're going to be having to crawl through a lot of stuff that's pretty nasty. I remember my first dust experience where it was a black dust in Red Deer, and I remember crawling through the black dust, and I used to smoke when I was younger, and I quit smoking because of that job. My throat was so sore and there was no way to get by it, so you got to kind of deal with dust. It's part of the trades. It's one of the killers of all tradespeople, so it's really bad because you can deal with the silica dust and all the other stuff, and there are actually different things like diseases that come from those kinds of dusts, and that's not good because especially that's your lungs, that's how you breathe, and that's what gives you oxygen to your brain, and that's what makes you smarter. So what you got to do is you got to make sure you're taking one of those allergy medications, but you also have to protect yourself because even if you are taking one of those, that stuff is still getting into your lungs and it's going to hurt you. So you got to be careful, and especially with silicon dust and all the other kind of dust, there's diseases like silicosis or asbestos with asbestosis, and you never know what can be mixing with those dusts. So especially asbestos is really bad because it does tend to mix with those dusts and you breathe it in and it gets really dangerous. But the silicosis, I'll always kind of remember the story of where I first heard about it, and it actually kind of dates back to the Romans. That was when they first wrote about it. Was I don't know who it was, one of the major construction people of the Romans. He wrote about the actual silica dust that got into the mason's lungs, and then they ended up passing away from that because it was a dangerous thing. But one of the things that you can do with that is you have to make sure that you're using a mask or something, but it's dangerous because it's bad. But I know the Egyptians probably had it too because obviously they were master masons as well, and it gets pretty dangerous with that kind of stuff. So you have to just be smart and make sure you're doing the right thing and wearing a mask or trying to pull your shirt up over your face. I know that doesn't work a lot of the time because I remember asbestos. I was in a house one time and we were drilling through a wall, and all of a sudden this dust just started raining down on me and my partner, who was a journeyman, and he kind of said he pulled his shirt up over his face right away, and I was wondering what was going on, and I said, "What is that?" And he kind of looked back, and he started to kind of like cover his face, and I didn't know what was going on, but it was an asbestos dust that was mixed with vermiculite, and that created a firewall in between the walls, and that's what they used to use in housing, especially in cinder blocks, because it was a firewall, but it also helped protect from the outside to the inside. So it was very dangerous because especially when you're drilling through, it just starts raining down on you and it creates a finer dust, which is not what you want to be dealing with, especially in that kind of stuff. But the silicon dust, that actually goes back to the silicosis portion of it. That kind of goes back from the Romans, the Egyptians, but it really gained its popularity when the miners, because being a miner, it's still one of the worst jobs you can have because it's dangerous, it's grimy, it's gritty, but there's a lot of people that love doing it and they're really good at it. They come from families of miners, and mining is a tradition since basically man was around and found out that he could kind of dig down a bit and find more precious metals. So it's a history. But the miners back in the olden days, what they used to do was they'd take the hammer drill. They didn't have a hammer drill back in the olden days, and so what they had to do was 2 guys would hold a drill bit down in the mine while another one took a sledgehammer and pounded that drill bit, and they would rotate the drill bit so that it would hammer in and drill a fine hole. Then they would pump that full of dynamite and blow the whole mine up from inside the mine while they were down there. And it was really a dangerous job, but it wasn't as bad until they got the hammer drill. The hammer drill was invented for the miners, and that was a major thing, especially the miners. They loved it. They thought it was the smartest thing, a drill that I think they either had pneumatic power or some kind of electric power hammer drill. But what it would do is it would pulverize that whole like everything that was down there, pulverize it to basically a dust, and then fire that back at the poor guy that was down there. And they didn't have masks for any of them, so the guy that was down there, he was stuck basically just kind of maskless. And that was where silicosis really took over, is because everybody wanted the job. Nobody wanted to be holding the actual hammer, or that actual, well, nobody wanted to hold the bit. The hammer was a great job because you didn't really have to worry about it, but holding that bit the whole time and spinning it for a guy while he hammers, that's probably one of the worst jobs you could ever have. So all of them wanted to get on that hammer drill, but the problem with the hammer drill was it kicked up so much dust in that confined space of a mine that the men just started passing away. I think they said the average lifespan of a hammer driller down in the mines there was, I think it was 3 months. So once you got that job of being a professional hammer driller, then you had 3 months to live, I guess. And that's not a good thing. That's not, I know it's serious. Yeah, geez, could you imagine that was your life sentence because you got a job that was decent for the time? But that's what those poor people had to go through, and a lot of them passed away because of the silicosis. So that's what really came into, people started learning more about it and they started studying it. But it gets horrible, especially when people just kind of sweep it up into a pile, then somebody else sweeps that big pile up into the air and you're breathing in it. And a lot of the time, most companies don't have, like the smaller companies don't have PPE requirements for them to buy you PPE. So it's up to you basically to bring your own personal protective equipment, which means you need to have your own mask. And I know there's been a ton of times where I was up in attics, and especially doing residential, you get into a lot of junk and people don't clean for years in a lot of these places. So you're crawling through some of the worst of the worst. And if you don't have one on you, it's a bad thing. That's why I personally recommend you invest in a good respirator mask if you have to, but you want to make sure you're shaving for one of those. But it's still, even one of those little the other style masks, it's got little holes that go through there around the edges, so you're going to be breathing in small particles anyways. As long as it's better, like if there's dust and fur flying through the air, then you want to make sure you got like a good mask on, because you don't want to be breathing that in. Your lungs are your most important valuable part for your system here, besides your brain and your heart, and I guess a few other things. But other than that, that's kind of where I was going for this morning, is allergies, how you can fight your allergies, how you can take on your allergies and win and not have to worry about it. And because that's what everybody wants. Nobody wants to be hacking and coughing and looking like they've got some kind of problem or disease or cold or flu, especially when it's just allergies. So why not just go find especially at most of those like the grocery stores or any kind of pharmacy, they can recommend what kind of works best for you. So, and that's what you're looking for. You want something that's actually going to make sure that it takes care of whatever your symptoms are, because certain ones take care of different symptoms, and some are cheaper, some are more expensive. So you'll want to look for them on sale too, because that's the thing. Like, most people can't afford to pay $50 for, I don't know, whatever it is, 50 pills, and that's gonna they're good for 24 hours, and some of them are really quick. They cut in so fast and you can feel so much better by break time. But if you're sitting there and you can't breathe for a whole day, it really affects you. It's a tough life. And especially with the respirators on, though, that does affect your lungs too, because you're breathing in at it takes more pressure to breathe in and breathe out when you're having to suck through a vent, basically. So you want to make sure you're using it when you need it and not just all the time and making it into a crutch or something like that. But other than that, that's kind of where we're going today. Is there's a long history of people having to deal with dust in the trades and all the other kind of crazy stuff that's out there, and you just want to make sure you're protecting yourself and protecting those around you. And especially if you're sweeping, there's stuff called dust bane, or it's like a dust neutralizer, so that when you're sweeping, it doesn't allow that dust to kick really high up in the air and everybody around you to have to breathe it in. Because I know when I take a flashlight, that's my usual test for when I need a dust mask, is I'll turn my flashlight on, and if I can see a lightsaber that's going up through the air, and that's the time that you have to be able to make sure that you're changing that mask or putting a mask on there, and change your mask. Especially when it gets really dusty and dirty, you want to make sure you got a clean mask that you can breathe through, because once it gets too dusty, you're not going to be able to you just won't be able to suck the air through that very easily, and that affects your lungs as well. So this can all affect you really badly, especially if you're not doing it proper. But what you just want to do is you want to make sure you're taking care of yourself, and yeah, use that stuff to the best of your ability, because there's not much else you can do. You just got to kind of keep working, keep going, but just don't stop. But it's tough, because yeah, if you've got to though, make sure you stand up for yourself, because you don't want to sit there and have that stuff come back later and affect you, because it really can. It's a major problem, and it's something we all have to deal with. But for Tool Show, I'm Master Dan, the Journeyman Shooter. Have a good coffee this morning and enjoy your day. Take care of yourselves, and good luck spring cleaning.